Good morning. This is Erica with Launching Legacies. Welcome to our daily devotional. Today we're going to continue our devotional on five things, or get over it. 5 things that we need to rise above or get over, right? So I think actually the devotional is called Rise Above. So rise above, 5 things we need to get over. And we are looking today at doubt. So yesterday, if you missed it, we looked at offense. So go back and watch yesterday's. And today we're going to look at doubt. So let's talk about doubt. We're going to look at Matthew, the 14th chapter, to talk about doubt. This chapter is what's happening is the disciples are on a boat. You know, disciples are Jesus' homeboys, right? They're on a boat and Jesus is separated from them. He is outside of the boat and they have this big storm. So this big storm is coming, and whatever issues are happening, and the strong winds are blowing, the waves are coming, and they're terrified or whatever. And as they are kind of tripping out, they look out and they see the figure of a man coming towards the boat. And so of course that terrifies them as well a little bit, but then all of a sudden they recognize that it's Jesus. Now I'm paraphrasing, so go ahead and read this for yourself, but they were like, oh, that's Jesus coming. And so he's like, okay. Peter is the one that's like, really? That's Jesus? He's like, Jesus is walking on the water. So Jesus is walking on the water towards the boat. And Peter's like, he's always the one that's like really gung-ho, right? So he's like, hey, if that's you, Jesus, then call to me and I'm going to come, right? And because he knows, he's like, if Jesus can walk on the water, he can help me walk on the water. All he has to do is call to me and I'm going to come. And so Jesus calls to him. He says, come to him. And Peter gets out of the boat, takes Jesus' hand and walks on the water with Jesus. And so we find this is a miracle. And it's wonderful, okay? And then we come to verse 30, and it says, but when the strong wind and the waves, but when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. And he said, save me, Lord, he shouted. So this is Matthew 14, that was verse 30. This is verse 31. He says, Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. And he says, you have so little faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? Okay, so we find here the word doubt, which means to waver. Believe it or not, doubt is not very common in the Bible. It's only 2 times in the New Testament, which is what we're reading from. And so it's not as common, but it's kind of a big deal. Here we have Peter, right? Well, first we have Jesus, and he's on the Sea of Galilee. And if you know, the Sea of Galilee is really just a big lake. And so a lot of times the big giant lakes were called seas or whatnot. And so he's on the Sea of Galilee, which is just a really big lake, and he's walking on water with Jesus, and it's like a big deal. And all of a sudden he starts to look at the winds and the wave, and he starts to get terrified, and he's like, oh no, I need you to save me. And Jesus, of course, reaches out his hand, so because somehow now he's not holding Jesus' hand at this point. Jesus calls to him, right, and he comes. But now he says, Jesus, save me. And Jesus extends his hand to him, and he's better. And Jesus' first response to him is like, what was happening, man? You were doing good. And then why did you start doubting? And then he said, why did you doubt me? Not just doubt, but why did you doubt me? And so this is a curious type of thing, right? And so clearly doubt is not something that Jesus feels is beneficial for us as believers. And so what's the implication here of this passage or this story, right? The implication is that doubt will cause us to stop doing the miraculous that God is doing in our life and go back to the mundane. So what does it do? It makes us go back to the place where everybody can do it, right? Everybody else is in the boat. They weren't walking on water. Nothing miraculous is happening in their situation. Peter goes back to being like one of them when he starts to doubt Christ. And so sometimes in our life, we need to be more like Peter than we do the other disciples that are in the boat. And that's just what it is, right? For me, I'm doing this nonprofit, and it's all by faith. I need to be like Peter almost all the time, really all the time, right? To keep doing what I'm doing and keep hoping that it's going to build and keep doing what God has called me to do. I need to be like Peter. I need to be walking on the the water. I need to be believing. I need to be knowing if God called me, then I can do it. And most of us need to be like that in our daily life. We don't need to be like the people on the boat, just living a mundane, regular life. You don't know what's happening next. Well, it's cool watching people trust God, but not really trusting Him ourselves. We don't need to be like them. We need to be like Peter, who's walking on the water. At least I do. I want to do what God's asking me to do. I want to say, if you call to me, I can come, right? And so when we want to be that way, one of the biggest things we need to overcome is our own doubt, right? Because doubt will make us forget that we're called. It'll make us forget the power that's in Christ to call us and then to complete the work that He's called us to do, which in this case is walking on this water. And so here we find Jesus is saying to Peter, man, don't go back to the mindset of the people who are in the boat. Keep believing like you believe in. Why? Because when you believed in me, you were doing the miraculous. When you believed in me, then you weren't afraid of this law that's operating on the planet, which says that if you're standing on water, you're going to fall into it, right? That's a physical property that's happening, and you don't even believe the physical property more than you believe me. When you were doing fine, you were that way, but then all of a sudden you doubt it and you go back to the mundane. This law is now operating against you, and you believe the law more than you believe me. You see the waves and the wind, and those things terrify you more than the fact that you know I am the Christ, the Son of the living God. And so we had Easter or Resurrection Sunday this past weekend, and we see, oh my goodness, this power raised Jesus from the dead. And then we go back to our mundane boats, right? We go back to the regular life in which we forget that the power that rose Him from the dead is the same power operating in us, gives us the power to believe the impossible. Rising from the dead is impossible. Again, it's a physical principle of this world that we don't see reversed, right? People don't just get back up out of a grave. Now, maybe they'll flatline and come back to life because they've been resuscitated. I'm talking about no resuscitation. We're not talking about electricity and all these other things being operated. No, we're talking about 3 days in the grave, rose again. Now, we believe that power. People who are Christians tend to believe that Christ rose from the dead, and they're right to believe that power. But it's the same power that rose Him from the dead that operates in us every day. And when we get to the place where Peter, like Peter, we're walking on the water and believing this power that is greater than this physical properties of the earth, we're doing fine. But then what gets us back to the boat? What gets us back to that mundane mindset where we're like, oh no, this is not possible. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Well, doubt does that. So how do we get victory over doubt? Well, it's what Christ is really saying, is demonstrated in this interaction between Peter and Jesus, right? It's like, okay, when you believe, you're doing something extraordinary. Just believing, you're doing something extraordinary. But when you doubt, you're going back to the ordinary. The simple principle operating here is this: to believe and not doubt. Right? To believe and not doubt, you need to understand that because God is extraordinary, because the work of Jesus is extraordinary, you can be a part of that too. That's what He did, right? That's the sacrifice that He made. He made us a part of His extraordinary divine nature. He made us a part, co-heirs. He made us brothers and sisters. He brought us in to what is Him. See, because what happens is, I don't think that Peter stopped doubting that Jesus could walk on the water. He just stopped believing that He could. And so what is the focus has to go back to, wait a minute, if you can do it, then I know you've given me the authority to do it. If you can say it, then I know that I can say it. If you can move in this way, then I know that I can move in this way. And so how do we overcome this doubt? How do we rise above this place and stay on the water instead of getting back on the boat? We say, you know what? You did something dynamic here. If you can do it, I can do it. And so what we go through, we look through the Bible, right? And my Bible is not at hand. Oh, I've got a whole bunch of Bibles over here, but I can't seem to find one right at hand. So we grab the Bible. I got my tablet. We grab the Bible and we flip through it and we say, look, this is what you did. This is what you said I have power to do. This is what you did. This is what you said I have power to do. This is what you did. This is what you said I have power to do. And we keep flipping through, right? We keep going through and saying, you know what? I know that you did it. I believe that you did it. And if you did it, then I don't need to doubt that you'll do it in me, for me, through me. I don't have to doubt or worry that you won't perform it now in me because it's me. No, I can keep the faith that you are who you say you are and you'll do what you say you will do. Because it's in that faith that we overcome doubt. It's in that faith where we recognize simple things. We recognize simple that I'll go back to the mundane if I stop believing that you walked on the water or that you rose from the dead. If I stop believing those things, then the power for me to do what you called me to do diminishes and I'm back to ordinary. But because I haven't doubted, I can do the extraordinary through you. And that's what we need to do. We need to rise above doubt. We need to say, because you did it, you've given me the power to do it. And I accept that power. I accept that power operating in my life. All right. That's all for today. But be encouraged. Please be praying for us. We are praying for you. We will see you tomorrow with number 3 of the 5 things that we need to get over, right? This whole series on Rise Above. Until tomorrow, be blessed, and we'll see you soon.